This is Jim Burke Part 2. If you haven't watched Part 1, go back and start with Part 1, please. Thank you. Let's continue. It better be squared away, that's all I have to say. With that, she retreated to the cool interior of the house, leaving me to wonder how I could get out of such a mess this time. Doug and Dave both propped themselves up on the edge of the pool, grinning, shaking their heads at me, saying only that their parents would kill them if they got into such a situation. Here's the reflection question. Based on how Jim's mother responded to his explanation, what can you infer about Jim's relationship with his parents? So what that means is, based on what you know, make a guess about Jim's relationship with his parents. Pause the video now and answer that question. Hope you got a great answer about that one. Let's continue. Over the next week, I would consult with Ken, ironically the teacher most responsible for me becoming a teacher, about my standing, asking what I could do to pass his class. It's a conversation those of you reading this know too well, and ultimately it worked. I received the gift D-. I needed to walk the stage. The problem was that on the other side of that stage stood the realization that all my friends were leaving for college by summer's end to begin preparing for a future I had never allowed myself to consider. Pause the video for a moment and answer the reflection question. What surprises you about the information Jim shares on page 5? This is page 5, by the way. How close was it to what you predicted on page 1? Pause the video and answer that. Let's continue. Jim writes, as my transcript shows, see figure 1, by the way, it's on the next slide, I drifted between what appealed to me and what the school required. My poor academic performance was by no means limited to my senior year or even high school. I can still see my great friend John Russell and myself trying to fix our middle school report cards so that the D's resembled B's. Sort of. I spent much more time in middle school trying to see the legendary hickeys on Renee Mell's neck than trying to jot down what Mr. Longwell told us about math, or Mr. Cook said about history, Mrs. Cook said about history as she stood straight and stared at the red dot of the back wall. So uncomfortable was she about speaking in front of groups. When I wasn't doctoring report cards or speculating about Renee's neck, I was playing basketball or waiting to get into the wood shop, to work on my lathe projects, which offered a pleasant calm in the middle of an otherwise disorienting day. Here's the reflection question. On page 6, Jim says that his transcript revealed his poor academic performance, in no way limited to his senior year in high school. However, he shares some humorous, non-academic information as well. What are some positive aspects of his personality implied by the information that Jim does acknowledge? So, what can you tell about Jim based on the information that he's provided here? Write several sentences. Thank you. Pause the video and do that, please. Here's a copy of the top half of Jim's transcript from River High School in Sacramento. Feel free to pause and take a look closely. Here's the second part, and if you look down on the bottom right, you will see English 4, Kitchener, D-, and that's what it took for him to graduate.